Hey, everybody, this is Bob Goodwin, and welcome to another episode of Career Club Live. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening to this as a podcast, we would love it if you left us a review, as well as make sure that you make us part of your steady podcast stream. Today's episode is brought to you by our newest service, which we call Next Placement, which is our innovation in the outplacement or career transition services industry. So with Next Placement, what we seek to do is bring a more people-centric, empathetic approach to addressing not just the tactical approach of job search, but also the mental well-being of people who are affected. In our view, these are real people who have experienced a loss, not just cells on a spreadsheet. And we want to make sure that they get all the help that they need as they move on from your company to the next stop in their career. So if you want to learn more, you can check that out at career.club and Next Placement. So I'm very excited about today's guest. We'll talk about this in a lot more detail, but one of the most common things that we hear from our members is that in their career, they feel stuck. And oftentimes they're considering making a move and maybe I should be doing something different, and they don't know how to do it. Today's guest is an expert in how to do that. So Anna Billian is day job is as a DEI leader in Germany for the global professional services firm EY. But she's also the founder of Workmazing, which is a career platform for people looking to leave a mark and do amazing work in their careers. And she's also the co-author of the bestseller Inspired by the Passion Test, the #1 tool for discovering your passion and purpose. She's been featured in Business Insider, Thrive Global, Brains Magazine, and many other media outlets. In the past decade, her credentials are really impeccable, and has been leading numerous human resource programs for large-sized multinational corporations, helping executives and high-potential professionals step into more prominent roles. She graduated with a degree in economics and holds multiple certifications in the field of personal and leadership development. Catch a breath. So with that, I would love to welcome Anna Billian. Anna, welcome.
Hi, Bob. Hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited. You've got quite a presence on social media and by reputation. We've had the opportunity to speak previously, and I just know that the framework that you have developed to help people in career change works. And I'm very happy to be able to share that with our listeners today. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks to you. So excited about this conversation today.
Okay. So as is our wont to do, we have just a little bit of an icebreaker section to help people get to know you. So where were you born and raised, Anna?
So I was born in Bosnia, which is, you have an international audience. So it is in Europe, close to Italy. So I think that may help. Yeah. And
so great.
Then I've lived many places. So I have lived in Italy as well, in the US, and right now I am in Munich in Germany, where I live with my husband and my son Tim.
Awesome. Well, so you just anticipated our next question, which is a little bit about your family. So thank you. I mentioned that you've got a degree in economics. Where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I went to school in my home country in Bosnia, where I graduated. And then once I finalized my studies, I started working there. And then my work took me actually to working in other countries like Italy and Germany.
So we're going to talk about that next right now, which is we love for people to paint a little bit of a picture of their career arc. And it's very interesting knowing a little bit about your background, that you've actually had a career change yourself. And starting off in accounting, and then before making the move. So do you mind just sort of sharing people a little bit about your career?
Yeah, sure. Well, my career, it's such a broad term because there's a lot of things happen. But maybe to make it really short is I always thought that I would love doing economics, and I still love economics, I have to say, because that's what I studied, and I still like making sense of the world. But for me back then, so working in finance and planning and control specifically, so that was, what I considered being a job. And I actually didn't know that there were people who would coach others or run workshops or do whatever and get paid for that. And And then when I realized that there were other career paths that could
Mhm.
really allow you to do things that I don't consider work, and you actually can get paid for that. So that was, I would say, one of the triggers that really inspired me to make a career change and to really pursue the path that I was passionate about.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know people are going to be inspired as we talk more about this. Just last quick question. What do you like to do? Hobbies, passions outside of work things?
Well, yeah, I guess that's sad to say. Right now, I don't have that many hobbies because my family is my hobby. So my son is 3.5, and
Oh
I
my gosh, yes.
use, yeah, most of my free time to play with him and to spend time with my family.
Well, we talked before we came on. I'm actually in Oslo, Norway right now, and we're here with a 3.5-year-old little girl and our granddaughter. And so it is a full-time job and a ton of fun. So I totally get that that's enough to keep you occupied and
It's a good
happy at the same.
hobby, yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to be talking about career change today because well, maybe why don't we take half a step back? Do you mind just setting the stage for what you do at Workmazing?
Yeah, so I am a career coach and I help people who are at the career crossroads and they are thinking, oh, what should I do next? Or I know what I want to do next, but I don't know how. So this is where I step in and basically we work together on their career journey from getting clear to really getting them to the new place where they want to be. So that's if I really can summarize it.
Okay, no, that's a very good summation. So I was going to say, at Career Club, we often hear from our members that they feel stuck, and you know, a lot of our clients actually are currently working. So many are in between jobs and considering what they want to do next. But a
Mhm.
lot of people are at, and you sort of said this earlier when we were talking about finance. It was a job, but they're like, I don't know if I feel really fulfilled in this. This doesn't feel like a fit. I don't feel like I'm in a flow state, as one of our friends likes to say. So at Career Club, a lot of our members would say that they feel stuck. So sometimes it's they're currently working at a company, but they're not loving it for some reason, or they're genuinely in job transition, and they feel like they don't have as many options as maybe I think that they have. What do you say to people who feel like they can't or shouldn't consider a career pivot?
Well, it's a great question, Bob, because when you are stuck, then it is really difficult to come up with something. And even if you think that you would like to do something, there is that question, am I actually up to it? Can I actually do this? And what can I do? What can't I do? And so, in from working with a lot of people, what I have discovered is that most of us, when we are stuck, we do one of the two things. Sometimes it's a combination, but most people do one thing primarily. And so one of those is really, going inside, sitting in your room by yourself and then journaling forever and thinking about, what you want to do. And then there is the other people, the other group of people who actually hate doing that. So they will do anything else, but really not confront themselves. And so what they will try to do is talk to other people to see,
Mm.
hey, what do you suggest? And what do you think I should do? And so both are good to an extent. So, and then there is a third group of people who are saying, oh, I am so busy. I know I should be changing something. And then they are not doing anything. So we are
Yeah.
not talking about this group because once they start doing something, they are going to be group 1 or 2. But then, once you start doing something about it, then if you are the type who really is reflective and you tend to sit in your cave forever coming up with answers, and then you are not coming up with answers. So the strategy is actually, to go out of your comfort zone and to actually have more conversations with people. And if you are really the one who is going to talk to everyone else, but you are really scared of sitting with yourself because you don't know what might come up, then that's probably what you should be doing. And so I always say, to generate an insight, you need to interrupt the pattern of how you have been doing
Mm.
things or how you have been thinking about them. And by choosing the more uncomfortable approach, you are almost guaranteed to have a new insight just because you are pushing yourself to do something that feels uncomfortable, and it's
Yeah.
not the type of doing things that you usually do. So that, I believe, is a really great strategy just to get started. And so forget about those lists, create a list of 10 things you love and hate. So a lot of us were doing that, and it doesn't work. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work for a reason, because if that's what you naturally do the first time you think about a career change, most likely you are not going to come up with something new. And so it is really, leaving that natural way of thinking and trying out something else.
Well, that's really interesting because, and this seems to come up in so many conversations, but obviously the pandemic was highly disruptive to so many things, right? And
Yeah.
for a lot of people, that became that catalytic event that they would not have chosen for themselves, but it happened. And now there's been this disruption, as you say. For other people, it could be a layoff. Like I wasn't expecting, I thought I was just going to keep doing what I was doing. And one day they call me into the HR person's office and gave me a box and I'm leaving. Like it got disrupted. And the way that I say it is sometimes the pause button gets pushed for you. And you're
Yeah.
sort of, you can either say you were forced to, or now you have the opportunity to,
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
take a step back and consider, is this really what I want to keep doing? Or is there something that would be more fulfilling for me? And again, in our experience, a
Yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
need a
Yeah.
disruptive event. And to your point, double click, a disruptive process to help unmine or unearth, mine out some of these insights that either we don't want to see or just can't see.
Yeah, yeah, and,
Yeah.
and and it's so great that you are saying that. And sometimes, even if it happens externally, so for example, a layoff, sometimes it's really something that you don't want, but often it is a thing that is, long overdue. So basically, you were thinking about changing something anyways, and you just did not have the time, the courage, whatever it is, to do something about that. And sometimes there is this external circumstance that makes you rethink everything. And so in a way, it seems to be a bad thing, but it actually could be a very good thing, because you really need to go back and then to evaluate everything that you are doing and ask yourself, so does this make sense? And then what is the next step going forward?
Yeah, and if I'm being transparent with our listening audience, I mean, even your starting Career Club, which was a significant career change for me, was something I had been thinking about for a number of years. And my corporate job, on the one hand, I was getting a lot of satisfaction from, and on the other hand, I wasn't. And that started to come to a logical conclusion. And then that, back to the pandemic, was also corresponding to the time when the headlines have 30 million, 40 million people have lost their jobs. And an external voice, a friend of mine, said, Bob, if now's not the time, it's never going to be the time. You need to go do this. And
Exactly.
I'm eternally grateful that he kind of kicked me in the pants and like, dude, go do this. And I can't imagine going back to my old life now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think your point about external forces and external voices is really well made.
Yeah, yeah. And so sometimes when I speak to my clients and they cannot decide what to do, then we just turn the question around. So, what will you regret not doing? So, if you now think about your life in 10 years from now, so what is it that you want to do? And if you don't do it today, you are going to regret that, in 10 years or 5 years from
Yes.
now. And sometimes that is really a powerful mindset shift. So instead of saying, what should I do? So
Well,
turn
no,
it around.
that super resonates with me because I use that word not infrequently. Is like I don't want to regret, and think about you've got young child, I've got 4 grown children, and would I tell my child just make the safe choice? I know you don't enjoy it. I know that it doesn't utilize all of your talents or the things that you're curious about, but it's safe. Just I would never tell my child to go do that. And so, I want to talk about personal risk tolerances because my risk tolerance is higher than a lot of people's. And so for me to say, you know what, I'm not going to live a life of regret. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to see what happens is more in keeping with my personality. If I say that to my wife, who's very, likes to have everything buttoned up, wants to know what's going to happen next. So how does this work when you've got, different risk appetites?
Yeah. Oh, that is such a great question. And I'm so glad that you are talking about this because research actually suggests that there are two types of people. So there are people who are all about maximizing gains, and that would be you, also me,
Yep.
I'd say. And then there's the other group of people, and they are all about mitigating risks. And you
Yes.
actually need both types. I always say I don't want to board a plane that wasn't checked by someone who is a risk mitigator. But I
Yes.
also know I wouldn't be able to board that plane if there was not someone who was able to think in a different way,
Yeah.
saying, I will make this thing fly. And so you do need both types. And I guess really the art here is getting clear and getting in touch with who you are and then accepting that. So if you are someone who is not taking risks that easily, then you don't need to take all the risks of this world, So it is also about saying, I am okay, I am good as as I am, and I don't need to be someone I'm not. And if I still would like to try out something else. So what are the things that are going to give me that security so that I know I have a plan B? So a career change is not all about new adventure and doing everything just, to have a cool life, because the definition of a great life is different for everyone. And so it is really about accepting who you are and what kind of risks you are willing to tolerate.
Yeah, so I really like that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to jump off 100-foot high dive
Yeah.
to be starting to explore something that might be more satisfying for you. We had a guest on last year who's been the CEO of a nonprofit, and I run into a lot of clients who think that at a certain stage of their life, they'd like to be part of a nonprofit. And what he suggested is, why don't you go volunteer for a while? Basically, wade into the pool a little bit, but you don't have to go all the way to quitting your job, not having a job, hoping to find a nonprofit to work out. Why don't you go volunteer at a nonprofit that you have some passion for and start to see if this is the environment and a cause that you actually would like to dedicate your career to?
Yeah. And so that's it. And it's actually also the research that suggests that you are going to be more successful if you start testing things out and then actually taking the risk out of the risk taking. So even if you are the adventurous type, if you have someone who can really help you reevaluate what you are doing, it really can help you create a strategy that works long term. And so it doesn't always need to mean making that huge leap, especially if that's not what you need in life. If stability and security is what you need in life, then the question is, what will give you this security and stability? So will you start building something while, at your job? Like you said, are you going to volunteer? Maybe you can even just start talking to people who are on that different career path and then looking, so what does it look like for them? And then really getting, that real picture. What is this job really about? And then going from there and saying, oh, maybe I like it, but maybe even not. And if I don't like it, then it's also okay. So just because you started going in one direction, it doesn't mean that you need to finish there.
So one of the things that just kind of popping in my mind as we're talking about this is having an intentionality. We were speaking with another career coach recently, and what I called a pinball career, like a pinball machine, and the ball just bounces off the last thing that hit it. Oh, my boss says, left and she went to a different place. And so I followed her. And then they said, hey, you should come and work in this department. I think you'd be good in this role. And you're just sort of doing what other people essentially are architecting for your career. And all of a sudden you're 15, 20 years into it. It's like, is this really where I want it to be? Is this really what I wanted to be doing? And what I really enjoy about what you're saying, Anna, is it's like just stopping long enough to inject some process and intentionality and reflection to say, is this what I want to be doing? If yes, good. We're happy for you that you're doing what you want to be doing. But if the answer is something less than yes, how can you start to explore what
Yeah.
could be more satisfying for you and using your gifts in a more fulfilling way?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's really it, because I see a lot of people feeling this pressure that they need to be more courageous. And so there are
Yes.
tools that can help you get there. But again, it is also about self-acceptance. So I am not Bob, so I am not going to do the same choices like he does. And that's totally okay, because I am Anna and I need something else in life. And it doesn't
Yes.
mean that my life needs to be dull and boring. It just means that I need different structures and different tools to make it work for me.
Okay. So I want to talk about the role of fear and the kinds of things that, because even for somebody like me, like you say, I'm an opportunity maximizer and I am willing to take a lot
Mhm.
more risk than other people. It doesn't mean that I'm not afraid. And it doesn't mean that there are
Yeah.
things that, can create self-doubt. And I'm wondering if you could just, talk for a minute about some of the different ways that you see fear, entering into the equation and how it might manifest itself.
Well, that's a great question. So this is actually not my thought. I have read that somewhere, that fear is actually energy. And so you can decide what to do with this energy. You can
Hmm.
let it cripple you, or you can use that energy as a tool. And so what I see is actually, why not using it, as an extra energy for the projects that you want to tackle. So instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling this fear and I'm going to stop, why not saying, I'm feeling this fear and I'm doing it anyways, and then seeing where that brings me. And so I really do believe that we can, redirect that energy from leading us, let's say, from being in that place of fear to being in that place, I'm afraid and still I'm doing it.
Could you, doing some of the prep work for this discussion, I came across your 4 blockers, which,
Yeah.
seems to kind of be in that sphere of fear, if that's a word. But could you help people understand what the 4 blockers are and how they can, maybe begin to address them, identify them, and then address them?
Yeah, sure. So I've actually created an assessment for people to identify what is really blocking them from creating the career they want. And if I ask people, so what is standing between you and the career that you want, then people will usually say, I don't have the experience, or recruiters are not reading my resume, and whatever it is. But these are all these are all superficial blockers. So that is
Mhm.
not the real root cause. So if you dig deeper, then you will see that there is something going on in here. And so what you want to do is you want to discover what that is. And so I have discovered, or identified actually, 4 main blockers that career changers usually face. And so one of them, for example, is the inner protector blocker. And that, and so the driving thought of this blocker is, what if I fail? So I know what I want to do, and I know I'd be really happy doing that, but what will happen if I don't pull it through? And so how that actually shows up in your job search and in your interviews is that you are sitting in a job interview, and then you are supposed to negotiate your salary. But then there is that blocker that says, oh, what if I fail? So you're not going to ask. And then you see a red flag in the job interview, and then you want to ask a question about the company's culture. And then you're thinking, oh, but what if they rescind the offer? Or, oh, what if they don't make an offer? And so you are quiet. And what happens is, by doing that, you actually you actually don't get that offer, because then people think you are either not interested enough, or you are not courageous enough, or you are just not as good as other candidates who are able and willing to ask those tough questions. And it doesn't have anything to do with your competence. It actually has everything to do with how you feel about yourself and what is that driving fear that you have. And so, to give you another example, a lot of people think, I am not good enough, and so basically it displays in a very similar way, because when you think that you are not good enough, and let's say you are not what people call a traditional candidate, so maybe you are a man and you are interviewing in a women-dominated field, or the opposite, whatever it may be your skin color, it may be just the way you look, whatever it may be. And then so you feel that you are not one of them. And so by thinking, I am not good enough, you go into that interview, and what your brain does, it actually is busy looking for differences, because you feel that you don't belong. And so instead of using your brain's energy to problem solve, your brain is actually busy looking for danger, for threats, because this environment is different than you are, and so you are not good enough. And so it shows up in how you actually communicate in that interview. And so it is very subtle, but in the end, this is actually what is driving our behavior, and not those external factors like not having the right experience or not having a good resume.
Yeah. So that's very, because we talk with our clients about when you have your convictions and you know what is true for you, and that can be what I'm good at, like what I enjoy doing from work, what I also am interested in, what I care about, and the intersection of those is starting to get you very close to what you might be really, really thriving in doing. When you know what's true for you and you've got that clarity brings confidence, because now you're not pretending. I'm not trying to guess with the interviewer. What does she think the right answer is? What am I supposed to say? And when you've got that, you kind of and you show a little bit of that, either fear, lack of confidence, whatever it is, people pick up on it. But when we are confident and not arrogant, not bragging, but just appropriately confident because we believe this is true about us, confidence is contagious. People sit like, she's really excited about this. She really cares about this. She's good at doing this kind of work. That's the sort of person we want on our team, even if they come from a non-traditional background. She's making me believe she can do this.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you're mentioning that, because when you don't know what you want, then you naturally have that feeling, I'm not good at anything. And so it's just what you said, that actually it's, clarity is actually what leads to confidence.
So can you help us think about frameworks, thought processes, exercises that people can do to really start to home in on what they're genuinely excited about? I usually stop a little bit short of passionate, because I think that word gets overused some, but have a true curiosity about and an interest to continue to learn more. Are there exercises or tools that you can recommend to people that will help them gain some of that clarity?
Yeah, well, there are plenty of exercises, and it really depends on what will help you interrupt your pattern of thought. So this is always, so if it's too easy, so you may want to do something else. But usually when I work with my coaching clients, so the first thing that we start doing is actually getting clear on their ideal life, not getting clear on their ideal career, because you want your career to be part of your life, and not to create a career and then all of a sudden your whole life needs to fit into that. And by doing this exercise, you actually ask yourself, so what are the different life areas that are important to you? Like, for example, it may be career, but it also may be, relationships with other people. It may be spirituality. It may be material possessions. It may be whatever is important to you. Mm-hmm. And so you ask yourself, so when my life is ideal, how does my life life look like when everything's ideal? And so this is something that I have learned from my mentor, Janet Atwood. And so by asking yourself this question and then going a step further and reassessing your current life against that ideal life, it kind of gives you a happiness score, because now you know, am I living this, at a 10 or at a 0? And what is really powerful about this exercise, and this is what Janet came up with, is to really think about a marker that will show you that you are on the right track. And so a marker is a bit different than a goal, because, for example, if you say, when my life is ideal, I am healthy and fit. So let's really, keep it simple. And so a goal may be, I am going to exercise 1 hour a day to be healthy and fit. But what is a marker? So what will happen in your life so that you can say, oh my God, this is really happening. And so my life is ideal right now. And it can be something like your wife tells you, oh, like you look so good today. It could be like, I am sitting in a restaurant and I actually crave healthy food. So it's not a sacrifice that I need to make.
Right.
It is about, like I jump out of bed and I actually love going for a run. So it could be anything that really becomes true in your life. And then when that one thing happens, oh wow, so it really is happening. And when you get yourself to that place of really visualizing what would be happening and how would other people experience you if you were living your ideal life. Most people, when they go through this exercise, they also get in touch with what kind of impact do I really want to make. And so it's less about the career, what do I want? It's actually more about, what do I want to do for other people? It's really funny how it works. But when you really get in touch with that ideal life that you want to live, then it actually pushes you to thinking about, when I'm living that life, then all of a sudden I have so much energy to do something else for other people. And that is where you actually then get in touch with your purpose, because your purpose is not so much about you as it is about contributing and creating something new for others.
Wow, that is a brilliant insight. And again, if I could just underscore that from personal experience, this is probably 3 or 4 years ago now. And I had written LinkedIn posts and put together some job search presentations before, but I wanted to do a masterclass and just really kind of have it all laid out for someone. And the way I described it was like, I put the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle out on the table, but I never painted the whole box of what this thing was supposed to look like when you were done. And so what I found was dabbling and trying to, a little bit on Saturday and a little bit at night wasn't working. And I was just going to take a week off, just take a week of vacation and just finish this project. And so I did. And that Monday morning, the alarm goes off, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but the alarm goes off. And the first thing I think is, oh, crap, I've got to write this term paper. I've got this big project I have to do. And almost immediately, my mind shifted to, no, you get to go hopefully help a bunch of people, many of whom you may never meet, but who will benefit from the content that you're going to go create this week. And that little bit of change was all the difference in the world, that it wasn't about me and it wasn't about the work. It was about the result and the benefit of the work. And to your point, how it would help somebody else, not help me. And like I said, like the thing wrote itself, it became much, much easier to do and much more fulfilling and hopefully a better work product.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. And let me build on that. So what scientists actually have discovered is that this is also a great way to become good at what you want to do in the future. And you probably have read a lot of books and articles about visualization and how important that is to imagine yourself in your dream job. And then if you think long enough about it and frequently enough, then eventually you're going to find yourself in that dream job. And what research actually has found that that's not quite true. So what is way more effective is actually visualizing enjoying the process of getting there. So for example, if you want to have, let's say, a successful business, so it's not about imagining how everything is great, but really imagining, enjoying talking to your clients. Imagine doing something that feels difficult. And so it even applies to, whatever you want to achieve, but really mentally rehearsing and enjoying the process of getting there is way more effective than actually visualizing only the final outcome. Because when we just are focused on that final outcome, our brain kinds of gets that feeling, oh, this was easy, so it's not motivated enough to do everything it takes to get there. But if you really can get yourself to that place where you say, I'm jumping out of bed and I'm actually happy about doing what it takes, then you can be almost certain then that you are going to arrive there.
Well, I think too, just for kind of more persistent joy, if I can express it quite that way, when we live in a mindset of I'll be happy when, you're probably not going to be happy ever. But if you can be happy now, and to your point, because you're embracing the process and what it's bringing out and developing in you, then every day has a purpose, and it's not something to be endured, but it's something to be embraced. And that is a massive mind shift change of what am I learning today about me, the business, other people, whatever it is, so that I can continue to grow as a person. And then I think to your really well-made point, not stopping with how am I growing as a person, but then ultimately how am I impacting other people positively. One thing, this is going to be maybe the less sexy part of this, because I really enjoy the parts about purpose and fulfillment and work-life integration. And I think all those are really, really important topics. From the practical side of it, one place where we see clients struggling is that on the one hand, employers will say that we really value agile learners. The world's changing very quickly, and we need people that can keep up with the pace of technology, business models, whatever. At the same time, in the real world, what we see is, hey, we want somebody for this role who's done this exact role in this exact industry, and they actually want to take no risk with a candidate. And somebody who is making a career change can feel extremely risky to an employer. And I'm wondering how you might help people think about how to reconcile basically not feeling so risky to the employer and helping connect those dots in the interviewer's mind that you're not so far away from this role as it might seem.
Yeah. And so that is a great question. And it is actually an obstacle that almost all career changers face, because typically how job descriptions are written nowadays is you need X of years of experience in a certain field. And so if you don't have that, then you are thinking, oh my God, so should I apply? And I always ask people, can you do the job? Because if you can't, then your resume cannot do the work for you. So you need to be able to do the job. But if you can do the job, then it is your job to connect the dots for the hiring manager. Right. Because what I hear from a lot of people is, oh, Anna, I know I can do it, but if they just could see it. And so you have to understand it doesn't work that way, because it's not their job to see it. It's your job to show it. And so unfortunately, how hiring works is that people really look at that experience to assess if you can perform in the role or not, which is actually not the right way of hiring, because we have, a review of 81 studies that says that previous experience has nothing to do with one's success in a new role. So that review of 81 studies was published in the Harvard Business Review. And what they say is what actually predicts performance is your past performance. So it's not so much about what you did in the past, but how you performed in the past. And since for employers, it's a lot more difficult to assess how you did something as opposed to what you did. So this
Yeah.
is why we actually still, it's the lazy approach to hiring, because it is much easier for someone just to write, a certain number of years of experience, and then you are the perfect candidate or not. And so you have to know that still, even though the times are changing, because also this year's Gartner Work Trend Report says that more and more companies are really willing to hire people who don't have the perfect experience. And so it still means that it is your job to really convince those people that that you can do the job, and basically to connect the dots. So this is what I've done, and this is how it relates to the role that you now have open. So no one will do this job for you. So it is really your job to sit and to think about each bullet in the job description, so start backwards. So don't think about, here's what I've done, take it or leave it, but really think about, okay, here's what you need. Okay, so this is what you need, and this is what I can offer. And so basically you never start, because, and I mean, this is really, I see that with a lot of people, we are emotionally attached to the experiences where we have put a lot of effort into. And so what you naturally do is you go into a job interview, or even when you're writing your resume, and then you keep emphasizing that one thing because you know that you spent 14 hours a day doing that. But is that the most relevant thing to that role? If it's not, then unfortunately people won't care that much. So the only one who cares is you. And so what they care about is, what have you done that shows us that you can do this job? And so it is really about taking that backwards approach and thinking, putting yourselves in the shoes of the hiring manager. So how can they easily understand that you have what it takes to perform in that role?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. We this might have been within the first 5 podcasts that we ever did, and this guy had worked like in manufacturing and in kind of a funky role, but he wanted to get into enterprise SaaS software sales. That's where he really wanted to go. It was more interesting to him. He thought he could make more money doing it and would just be a better fit for him. And he goes to this company, and they're like, why are we even talking to you? Like, he got a referral in. So kind of as a courtesy, the chief revenue officer took the meeting, and he's looking at his resume. He's like, why am I even talking to you? We want people that've got, X years of quota attainment, selling to this kind of executive enterprise software. And what I thought my friend did just like an amazing job of was, tell me why that's important. What are the underlying things that would indicate to you? And he just kept breaking it down, and he was able to relate his experience. Well, I have done that. You don't call it that, but here's exactly what I've done that relates very closely to what the underlying behaviors are that you're looking for. And the guy's like, okay, fine. And he ended up going through the process, and they had kind of a hire by committee in terms of where people vote. He was the only person that ever got all the votes. But he did, I thought was just a masterful job, was he broke down what are the underlying things that you're really looking for. And then, to your point, connected the dots for them, because they were so far apart in that CRO's mind that he wasn't going to see it. So my friend really doubled down on the research, the prep, asking great questions, and ultimately landed the job that he was quite successful at. He wasn't setting himself up for failure. He set himself up to be on the path that he wanted to be, was there for 3 years, and got recruited away to go lead North America sales for somebody in SaaS software. So the point that I think that you're making so well is, it's incumbent upon the candidate, not the interviewer, to see the path and to be able to articulate that path of why I am a good fit for this role, instead of hoping that the interviewer figures it out on her own.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. So for example, me, leading D&I projects. So if I was applying for a D&I role, then I would basically list everything that I am doing in this role that is also listed in the job description, because I know this is what people
Right.
care about. And so I would say,
Yeah.
coordinate internal employee resource groups, and, I coordinate 900 people within 4 networks, whatever it is. And so then I would list achievements, about me designing and rolling out trainings on unconscious bias. And then I would speak about, the recruiting events that I do and so forth. But then if I was applying for an employer branding role, I wouldn't make the case about me coordinating different employee resource groups.
Yep.
I would make the case about, so what is it? Okay, I have designed that event, for underrepresented groups. So probably that would be the first bullet. And then what else do they need? They need you to be able to engage, the company's audience on social media. Okay, I had the role model campaign, and that's what I did that time. So let me put that onto my resume. And so basically you are going to dig deep into your stories. And it's really crazy, like how many stories people can find if they just dedicate the time to think about it from a different perspective. And usually you need someone to pull that out of you. So it's also good to talk just to a good friend or a coworker. It doesn't have to be a career coach, but someone who is going to challenge you and who is going to say, okay, whatever you said right now, how is it relevant to the job description? And if it's not, then probably you've got some work to do.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you said about, stories. The way that I say is the resume might get you the interview. The stories you tell will get you the job, because you need to make me believe. And sometimes, though, people don't know their own stories as well as they could or should. And one of the things that you just said that I think is very helpful is going back to colleagues, and this may be 2 or 3 jobs ago, but going back to colleagues that worked on a project with you and asking them how they remember your contribution and what was the impact of that project. Because again, N of 1, my memory's terrible. I don't remember. I've just moved on to the next thing in my life. And you go back and talk with a teammate, and she might say, oh, don't you remember, we did this, that, and the other thing, and the way that played out in the business, and we ended up growing sales or cutting costs or mitigating risk. And other people can provide you with some facts, some perspective on your contribution, what qualities you brought forward in that role, in that project, that oftentimes we're not self-aware of. And even to the extent that we lack the vocabulary or the ability to articulate it in a compelling way. And so we're kind of getting back to a theme of other people can help bring out of you what is there. You just may not see it or be able to know how to talk about it.
Yeah. And I'd like to add one thing if I can. Please. Because I see that a lot. So a lot of people who are in roles that are not measured by KPIs, they usually struggle to really identify what is the impact of my role. So I worked with a data analyst, and she had prepared presentations for the sales team. And then I asked her, okay, and so how did that presentation help the sales team win new clients, and how many new clients did they win? And she didn't know. And so this is something that you are going to need in your job search, but not only because of your job search, you are actually going to be more successful and more fulfilled in your role if you really go the extra mile and you follow up with the stakeholders that you work with. And then you ask them, hey, that, Bob, that sales presentation that I prepared, so how did the meeting with the clients go? And did someone sign up? And how much money did we make? Because then you are going to feel more confident about your job, because it's not going to be, I'm just doing sales presentation. It's going to be, I'm helping this company win new clients. Right. So this is going to be, a great case for your promotion, but also when you start looking for a new role, you are actually going to have a tangible impact to put on your resume. And so I really would like to encourage everyone to start doing that. Always follow up. So if the company invited you to represent your business division at a recruiting event, follow up and say, how many people did join, and how many people did we hire? So I did the presentation and then 3 people joined the company. Great. So this is a tangible accomplishment that you are going to use in your promotion case, in your new interview case, whatever it may be.
Well, so you bring up a really good point. One is this is helpful. Say that you're not leaving your company. You don't want to leave your company. Sure will help when it's review time and you're asking for a raise. And you can say, hey, here's how I've contributed in the last year. But the other point that maybe we've skipped by, my fault, on this is we don't always have to leave our company to have a career change. We could actually change within departments at the company. And so there's some equity that we can draw on. We already know the company, how it operates, its lingo, the industry, but I want to go from finance to HR like somebody I know did. And you don't have to completely change everything, but you can start to make a significant change. So I think that, again, for maybe our less risk tolerant people, like you don't have to completely go, from all the way west to all the way east. You can kind of go north within your own company and start to make those pivots. Do you see that as a viable path for your clients of not having to leave the company, but just change departments, divisions, functions?
Well, that is actually the fastest way of later landing a job in a new field at a different company, because you have proof that you were able to pull it off at your own company. So if you can do that, I always recommend to do it, because it really is a shortcut, since you don't need to convince someone else that now you can do finance or HR or whatever it is.
Right.
And within your company, it is easier because you can start working on a project. So you can, become part of a project that focuses on that. And so you're still in your job. And then again, that is, taking the risk out of the risk taking. So you can be part of that project that deals with a new topic. And then you can test if you really like the topic or not. So is it really what it seems to be? And are the people, what are the people in this role really doing? And that can help you really understand what the role is about, and then also pick up the language that you need to interview for a future role. And maybe you don't even want to change companies, because you don't always need to change companies. So people change companies for a lot of reasons, but sometimes, like you say, staying there and doing something else may be the solution that is right for you.
I want to just zoom out. Maybe we can kind of start to land the plane here, but I can, imagine that some people might be thinking about, like, I'm not thinking about career change. I don't think that I'm going to have to change my career. And the demographic trend is we're living longer. People are living longer, and, working 40 years and retiring at age 65, it's conceivable that you're going to live 20 or 30 years longer. Are you really banking enough money to be able to retire for that long, living whatever kind of lifestyle it is that you think that you want to live? That's kind of the financial aspect of it. But then there's but I'm still interested. Like, I don't want to just, go sit in a chair and knit for the rest of my life or do crossword puzzles for the rest of my life. I want to continue to contribute, just in a different way. And I'm curious how you think about either demographic trends, future of work trends, and that the likelihood of people wanting or needing to have a career pivot.
Well, the likelihood, what the data say is, and this was published in the Gartner report for this year, is that 56% of job seekers are looking for a job in a new field of expertise. So it means that there are a lot of people. And then if you couple that with the trends that are emerging, so for example, just the field of AI, now with ChatGPT. So I've just read somewhere that, the people who come up with the right prompts, so that is now
prompt engineering.
Really is that is booming. So sometimes you can't even predict the jobs that are going to emerge with the rise of technology. And so so it is about your passion, but it is also about what does the world need, and how can we find a really sweet spot between what I like and how I can contribute. And I believe so it is there, and then it has really less to do with your age. And sometimes people who have done a lot of things, they just find a lot of joy in passing that knowledge on to others. So they are going to be mentors, they are going to coach others, or they are going to bring in their expertise into something new to help the world come up with new technologies or with new solutions or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I believe that in today's world, so what you are doing today, probably you won't be doing it in 5 or 10 years from now, just because the world is moving that fast. And then you are evolving as a person, and what you like today, it doesn't mean that you have to love that in 5 or 10 years from now.
Exactly. Well, what I've enjoyed about this conversation, Anna, is that I find it very hopeful on one hand, but also giving people, knowing that there's a path, there are resources that can allow people, and I like how you just said that, to allow them to continue to grow, evolve, whether, it's externals that are driving change, or it's internally that I'm just becoming a new person over time, that we can continue to find fulfillment in our work, fulfillment, how we contribute to society, right? And be part of things that are important to us. If people want to learn more about you and Workmazing, what's the best way to do that?
So my website is workmazing.com, or you can connect on LinkedIn. So you see my name right here, and yeah, happy to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I have really, really enjoyed this. As we kind of wind this down, is there any parting thought or bit of wisdom you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah. So let's end with with our starting point. And this is especially true for career changers, because career changers think they have to learn so much and to improve so much in the new field. And I always say, it's self-improvement is great, but always starts with self-acceptance. So accept that the way you are and what you have done so far is okay. And it's the best that you could come up with, the best that you can do. And it is also enough to bring you where you want to go. So always aim for self-improvement, but realize, we are all okay as we are just today.
That is very helpful. And again, knowing so many of our members as I do, that is spot on advice. So thank you for that. And just thank you for your time. This has been great.
Thanks
again, for folks who are watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. And Anna, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us today.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
I know you're good.